That's in the shit. What's up, everybody?
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first. The daily podcasts are Ken and Ken in the Morning, Lions Talk with Smoke and Jeremy B, Around the Indoor Football World, Shield TV, and The Big Football Show. The afternoon podcasts are Valhalla Hour, Brosef Sports, WCFL Dolphins Talk, The Cheap Seats, Bodkin Show, and Spirit of Detroit Podcast. The nightly podcasts are Hallis Hall Report, Frozen Tundra Network, Wrestling Roundup, Skull Gang 365, First and 10 with Foz, Prime Sports World, The Man Cave, Prim and Proper Sports, Spitballin' Podcast, Lions Fan Cave Chat, 313 Den Podcast, Puckett, The Guys Huddle, Main Event Football Show, Let's Talk Sports, the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and Off the Rails. Hope you enjoy all the shows and feel free to comment, like, share, and subscribe.
Hey. Welcome to the second MMAniacs podcast. I'm Joe, as always with Ken. Ken the Packer fan. So welcome to the show. We got some exciting stuff to talk about today. First off, we're going to talk about Rob Whittaker and the fight that he had. Very impressive victory. Ken, did you got a chance to see the fight?
Oh yeah, that freaking right hand starched him.
Man, that uppercut though, the way like Whittaker is a dangerous guy, man. Like his patience, and they talked about it on the broadcast too. Daniel Cormier brought it up to him, I believe it was, how, because he had him hurt, he had him backed up against the cage, and rather than swarming in and just spamming those overhand rights, he found that uppercut that, he just threw that right uppercut, and it was just, man, I mean, you can't ask for a better shot than that, dude. Like, bang! And it was a beautiful punch.
And that's honestly the first fight of his that I had actually seen, and holy shit, was that impressive!
Oh man, and you got to go back and watch the Reaper, bro. Like Whittaker has been, he's been the champ, he's been a top contender for a long time. His only problem is that Adesanya had the belt, and Adesanya beat him twice, and so the UFC is very hesitant to give another title shot to somebody if they've already lost to the champ twice, and so Whittaker's unfortunately been stuck in this place where he's the number one contender, he's the number 3 contender, and he just can't get another belt or another shot because Adesanya had it for so long. And then, he got that fight with Dricus Du Plessis where if he would have won that fight, there's a chance that, he could have got the title shot against Strickland, but he lost. And, that sent him.
Oh, wait, no. I did see him against Strickland, I think.
No, Dricus.
Oh, okay, then that's who it was.
Yeah, Dricus. So then Dricus got a title shot off that fight, and then that's when Dricus fought Strickland and won the belt. So the question one for the day, has Rob Whittaker done enough to earn a title shot? We have Adesanya is going to be fighting Du Plessis, I believe, in Perth, Australia, coming up very shortly. So if Adesanya wins, again, is the UFC going to be hesitant to give Whittaker the title shot because he's already lost to Izzy twice? Or has Rob Whittaker done enough?
I was going to say, with this highlight reel knockout and with how everybody since that has been going crazy about it, because did you happen to see any of the tweets that a lot of the fighters were putting out after that about how impressed that the actual UFC fighters were with it? I think that might have put him back in contention.
I agree. I can see a scenario where if Israel Adesanya wins the belt again, they make Rob Whittaker fight one more time. Probably, I would imagine he'll have a rematch with Dricus for the number one contender fight. Number one contender spot. Whittaker was supposed to fight Khamzat Chimaev, but unfortunately Chimaev can't seem to get out of his own way. He seems to just always either get injured or he can't make weight. which is really a shame because the guy's an animal, and I'd like to see what he could really do, see his potential. I was really looking forward to that Whitaker fight.
I think Shemaev, there was one of the tweets there saying how crazy that finish was.
Yeah, Shemaev was supposed to be in that fight, and he pulled out. So, it'll be interesting, like, when Shemaev finally does come back, who do they match him with? And, I was really looking forward to that Whitaker fight because I thought that was going to be a great test for him. If he can get by Whitaker, he definitely deserves the belt. But again, Shemaev can't get out of his own way. So we agree, Rob Whitaker at this point has done enough to earn a title shot, right? But we also, would you agree that there's a chance that if Adesanya wins, that they make Whitaker fight again before getting a shot at the belt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say if they can get Shemaev healthy there, that might finally give you that fight. And they might.
That would be another one if they could get Shemaev healthy.
Try and shoehorn that in before they let Whitaker at that belt again.
Yeah. So let's lead into another question. Let's say Adesanya wins, which isn't guaranteed because Dricus has real power and he can wrestle too. In your opinion, let's just say for the sake of argument that Adesanya gets by and Rob Whitaker gets the title shot. Do you think that Rob has evolved enough, or do you think that he will game to make it? Will this fight be more competitive than the previous two against Adesanya?
I haven't seen the Adesanya fights with Whitaker, so I don't know if he's been able to improve enough. But from what I've saw in this fight here, he looks like he's on a hell of a career path going up now.
Yeah, the first fight, Adesanya knocked him out convincingly. Whitaker started to wrestle some, but he got caught. I think Adesanya's striking is so versatile, and he's just, I don't know. I'm not convinced. Put it this way. I'm not convinced at this point that Rob can make it that much different of a fight, but I think the opportunity, and so we'll see what happens. That'll be interesting. 185.
I was gonna say from what he showed, he's at least got a puncher's chance.
You always have a puncher's chance, and Rob can wrestle too. Like, he can grapple. So I think his best strategy would be to try to use his striking to get into grappling range and employ a grappling strategy, because Israel has shown that he has good takedown defense, but he's not the greatest grappler. He's not a jiu-jitsu guy. I've never seen him tap anyone out with he's choked people. He choked Costa, but he hasn't shown me anything impressive as far as being an offensive jiu-jitsu fighter that would make me think that Rob wouldn't have the advantage in the grappling. But you got to be able to get into that range. And the thing is with Adesanya is he's a counter striker. So, when you're throwing your shots to try to get into range, you also have to watch.
You're setting yourself up.
Watch counters coming back. So that would be an interesting fight. I would be curious to see what Rob's strategy is going to be. And that's assuming, of course, that Adesanya gets by him, gets by Dricus. But if Dricus wins, that sets up, I think that actually gives Rob a better chance at getting a title shot, because he lost to Dricus, but it was, he got caught with a really, really stiff jab that just, rattled his teeth, and that could happen to anybody, Rob was fighting a good fight up to that point, and he just got caught. I wouldn't mind seeing the rematch between Dricus and Rob.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Strickland in the picture there as well. In my personal opinion, that fight between Strickland and Dricus was not a very good one. Strickland is an awkward guy to fight. His defense is very good. He tends to make good strikers look bad just because his defense is so good. and he's not a guy that throws a huge volume of strikes. He's a play good, throw the 1-2, and that's his strategy, and it works. It's effective. He took out Adesanya with it. So you got Strickland in there, and then Chimaev, if he can ever get himself right, you have Chimaev in there too, in the mix. And the UFC is just dying to give Chimaev a title shot, but he just can't seem to get out of his own way. It's like, I just don't understand it. Like, he's sitting here like, please let us give you a shot at the belt, and he's like, nah, I don't feel like making weight, or nah, I have the flu. It's like, dude, you're missing out on millions of dollars, potentially.
Well, I was going to say, you also got to think, too, that he doesn't want to put a bad fight out there. That if he's actually got the flu in these injuries, you don't want to go out against these fighters at 80%. Because that's just a way to not only tank your stock, but to get a severe injury to where you're going to be out for a long-ass time.
You're not wrong, but I would counter that argument with fighters fight injured all the time. Like, every fighter no fighter comes into a fight 100% healthy. Everybody gets injured in camp. You have either a broken finger, or you have a sprained ankle, or like rib strain, and muscle strain in your ribs. Like, everybody comes in with, nobody's 100% healthy. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that the injury was bad enough that he felt he couldn't fight. But it's starting to become a pattern of every time they set up a big fight for this guy, they set the table for him and he doesn't show up to dinner. So I think he really needs to do whatever he needs to do to make the next date, like that they book him.
Now, this would lead into a little bit of a side topic there, but watching the Rogan podcast, he is a major proponent of letting these guys use steroids for just the recovery aspect. Now, do you think that the UFC would ever allow that just purely for recovery, not while you're training, anything like that, just so we can hopefully get these guys at the best health possible?
No. I don't believe that'll ever happen. Steroids has such a negative connotation to it. It's such a taboo kind of thing in sports. Number one, the UFC is all about their branding and their image. Now, let's not pretend that most of the top fighters are not on juice. Like, the truth is, I think we all know, that most of the top fighters that can afford juice are on juice, and they just have ways to beat the tests. And unfortunately, the nature of steroids is that steroids are always going to be ahead of the game when it comes to the testing, because they figure out how to get around the tests, and it takes a while before the VADA or whatever agency figures out, hey, there's a way that these guys are beating the test. And then so as soon as they figure that out, well, they're already working on the next.
Yeah, I were gonna say it is big money to be developing these steroids that are beating the test. So you've got guys that are dedicating all their time to figure out, hey, how can we just slip under that radar just enough to where we can get this guy juiced out of his gourd.
Right. And then so that's the first argument, is that I don't think from a branding perspective, the UFC would go for it. Second is you have to consider the damage that it would do to these fighters. And I'm not even talking about the damage of steroids. I'm talking about once you start steroids and then you stop, steroids, what anabolics are is synthetic testosterone. So when you start doing cycles, your body stops producing its own natural testosterone, which it gives you, like, as long as you're on the juice, you're fine because your testosterone ratings are like 16-1, But the second you get off the juice, now your body doesn't kick in and produce its natural testosterone the way it used to. And so it can cause health effects, negative health effects. And also where guys end up needing TRT, testosterone replacement therapy and stuff. So that's the thing, is it leads to not only the physical damage to the fighter, but it also leads to, if the UFC was to say, okay, you guys can, out of competition, you guys can use roids for recovery. The problem is, once they come back in, now they have no testosterone, so they're going to have to try to get their use exemptions.
That's what I was going to say. I've been hearing more about fighters getting the therapy exemptions for getting put on the TRT.
Right, and that's not. They're basically juiced. They're just basically, that's what they are. So it's, you might as well at that point just come out and say, let fighters juice. And I don't think that that's ever going to happen. I know that Joe Rogan thinks that it's a good idea for recovery purposes, but to me, the long-term damage that you're going to do to your chemistry is not worth the speedy recovery. I think that there's been enough scientific and medical advancement with stem cell therapy and stuff like that, that if guys are coming back from ACLs in 6 months.
Yeah, but with a lot of this stem cell therapy, they're having to go to like Argentina and all these different countries to be able to get it. It'd be one thing if it was readily available in this country and there wasn't so much regulations for it, but I don't know if you're going to get such a widespread usage of the stem cell therapy, just because, hey, you got to book a flight, stay down at this place for a while. Which,
right.
I've heard a bunch of good stuff about the stem cell therapy. And again, mentioned in Rogan, he's a huge proponent of that too. He even tried, I think it was his mother that he was trying to get to do it.
Yeah. But so I used stem cells as one example. Stem cell therapy has shown, really remarkable recovery effects. There were people that had, really severe spinal injuries, and they injected stem cells into it, and it regenerated the tissues, the spine, which it gave people a lot more mobility. Like, there's been some really positive breakthroughs as far as stem cell research goes, but that's not the only avenue or the only advance that medical science has made. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. He just tore his Achilles completely, had a surgery, and within 4 months he was back. I mean, 20 years ago, an Achilles was a lifetime injury. Like, you were not coming.
Oh yeah.
And you were never going to walk the same. You were never, you know what I mean? It was a career injury, and now guys are coming back in 4 months. Like, it's I just don't think that steroids are worth it. But I'm not a fighter at the top of the game. Unfortunately, a lot of these guys, they're going to take that shortcut because, you get paid by how many times a year you fight, and so if they can get that extra fight in, like, that's the difference.
Oh yeah, and it's not like these UFC contracts are like these boxing fights where they're making absolutely insane money. They're making good money, but nothing compared to these big time boxing fights.
I think that they're making good money? There's guys that are fighting on 15-15 contracts, like 15,000 to show, 15,000 to win. So even if let's say you fought 3 times a year and you won all 3, that's 90,000, and that's not even including your taxes.
I was gonna say that's pretty much just paying for the camp.
I mean, you're making 90,000 minus taxes, minus the cost for your team, your training, everything like that. You're down to about 50,000, and then you got to live on that for an entire year. You might as well go be a construction worker at that point, right?
Shit, you'd make more money as a construction worker at that point.
That's what I'm saying. So when I'm talking about these guys like coming back, I'm talking about the top guys that are making, 400, 500,000, 250,000 a fight. It's like the difference there is huge. If you can only fight once in a year, you make 250,000. If you can fight 3 times, you make $750,000. That's, there's a big difference in lifestyle there. So I could see where the motivation would be to use steroids in your off time to, rehab injuries and stuff. but I just think that it's not worth the long-term damage that you're going to do to your body chemistry. But then again, these guys have a short shelf life. They have a window that they can make money in. And so, guys are going to take that opportunity if they can get it. But so moving on, speaking of steroids, I was hoping that Dom would be here by now, because one of the topics
I was going to say, he should be on in a little bit.
Yeah.
And we all know how much Don loves him.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of debating on whether we should hold off on the topic, because I know Dom wants to be here for it. But, we were just discussing steroids, and it just seemed like the perfect segue, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that. Come back to that topic. We'll give Dom a chance to show up. But
we've got a frozen Joe. We got a bit of technical difficulties, but Joe's internet usually kicks back up after a couple of minutes. But with the steroids, there is some talk going around right now that they're trying to put together a fighting league that you're allowed to completely juice in. And the whole thing, the argument that I've heard is that you were already paying these guys to do superhuman feats, and these are guys that would have already been in anyway. So why not let them juice to the freaking gills if that's what they choose to do to themselves, so we can see some incredibly spectacular fights. Hopefully we will be having Joe back here soon. Here we go. And we've got a Joe back.
Oh, man.
You and that California internet, man.
Man, you would think we'd have the best. I don't know. It's stupid. But so we were, we're a new podcast. So we wanted to let our audience, get a chance to know us, get a chance to know kind of what we think about MMA. You can get a good feel for somebody by who their favorite fighter is or things like that. So we're gonna, talk about that. First of all, like, who's your favorite fighter of all time?
Oh, if I gotta pick all time, I'm probably going with the Iceman.
Ooh, Chuck Liddell.
Watching his kickboxing was out of this world growing up.
Yeah, Chuck had entertaining knockouts. I'll never forget when he beat the living Tito Ortiz.
Oh yeah, that's literally just what I was thinking of as I was mentioning his kickboxing.
Yeah, Chuck. Well, he was a good man. He was not one of my favorites of all time. He's one of the all-time greats. But he stuck around too long, and he got knocked out a lot of bad times at the end of his career. So it kind of, to me, it tarnished his legacy.
Didn't the same thing happen with Rampage too?
Yeah, Rampage stuck around too long. I mean, Rampage trying to fight. Like, it's like, bro, you're 50 years old. Like, it's time to hang it up. There's only one guy that can fight at 50 years old, and that's Randy Couture.
Watching some those slams that Rampage would do. Oh my God! I think some of those guys are still feeling it. Who the hell was the guy he knocked out with the slam?
Yeah, power bombs, dude. Rampage had them power bombs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. I think favorite fighter of all time definitely is George St. Pierre.
Oh,
And
I
it's not
love
even
me some
close.
GSP too.
He was an absolute animal, dude. I mean, his striking was impeccable. Um, just being honest, after he got knocked out by Matt Serra, he changed his whole game up and he stopped, trying to strike so much. He stopped going for knockouts. He just, started to be a wrestling dominating kind of guy. He was happy to go to a 5-round decision where he wins every round. But even then, I mean, he was so dominant for so long. I mean, there was really nobody who could, Matt Hughes beat him early in his career. And then Matt Serra landed a lucky punch or two, and you saw what happened in the rematch, like when George St. Pierre came back, So to me, I think not only is George St. Pierre my favorite, but I rank him as the greatest of all time because he lost only 2 fights and he avenged both his losses by knockout. So I think you can't really better than that. He dominated the welterweight division. I think it was like some crazy, like 8 or 9 title defenses. And then, retired in his prime because of steroids, because, he's like, all these guys are juicing and there's no testing. So I'm not going to sit here and fight these roided out monsters. You know what I mean? That was literally his argument was, I'm not going to sit here and fight these juiced up. There's no testing. I'm out. And, so he retired at the top and then he came back. He beat Bisping for the middleweight title, and then immediately he gave it up. But I don't think he ever intended to defend the title at 185. It was more like just the cherry on top of his career, so he could say he was a 2-division champ.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, GSP is the tops because number one, he did it clean, no steroids, never popped for a drug test. Number two, the level of dominance that he did, with his grappling and the thing is like with, let's say, Khabib, right? Khabib was an absolutely strangling, like suffocating kind of grappler, but Khabib was, his striking was okay, but it was
Yeah,
never something that
that's what I was just about to say.
Whereas GSP was a literal fucking ninja. Like that dude could kick you in the face and knock you out. He man punch you. Like his striking was so impeccable. His leg kicks, everything. But he didn't really go to that well too many times because he didn't have to. He would just come in, take you down, and wrestle fuck you for 5 rounds and go home with a decision and his face not marked up. You know what I mean? So GSP is my number 1 overall. I'll tell you who absolutely is not the greatest of all time is Jon Jones. Now, Nick, who's at Disneyland right now, would completely disagree, vehemently disagree, as would Dom. And to them, they look at the fact that Jon Jones has never lost a fight. Like, he's never lost. That loss, quote unquote, to Matt Hamill by disqualification doesn't count because Jones knocked him out with the elbows, rolled 12-6 elbows, so that Jon Jones technically does have a loss, but he knocked the guy out. But for me, the steroids does it. Like, and the thing with Jon Jones is that, okay, so for example, this and this might sound hypocritical to some, but I have Anderson Silva. Like, I rank him in my top 5 of all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Anderson Silva did use steroids. However, for me, the caveat is the reason why I can still, in good conscience, rank him is that he never popped dirty before he shattered his leg against Chris Weidman. And, like in the second fight, like he lost to Weidman fair and square. Nobody was on roids. Then he shattered his leg in the rematch and he used steroids in order to recover from the injury. And then after that, Silva was never the same. He went on this.
I don't think I can think of anybody that shattered their leg like that came back and ever fought anywhere near up to what they were. Most of the guys that I've seen come back from it are just almost like a shell of their former self.
Yeah, I mean, he lost to Michael Bisping, and nothing against Bisping. Like Bisping, I have tremendous respect for Bisping and for his career, but
Well, was that with
anybody in the world
one eye?
Yeah, fighting with one eye. I mean, dude, he fought a lot of his career with one eye. Number one, Bisping is a tough son of a bitch. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not shitting on Bisping at all. Like, he was a legit champ. He knocked Rockhold. Bisping was a good fighter. But does anybody in the world think that Bisping is going to beat Anderson Silva pre-leg break? No.
No.
I'm sorry.
No. God, no. I absolutely loved Anderson Silva.
And so for me, that's the thing, is that we can trace, and just follow my argument here, we can trace when Anderson Silva used steroids, and he admitted to it, that he used steroids to recover from the leg shatter, right? Up to that point, he was the most dominant fighter in the history of UFC, other than Jon Jones, right? And he was clean. So that's how I can, in good conscience, rank him, is because I'm ranking the Silva up to that leg break. To me, he was never the same after that. And he still gave competitive fights against, good fighters after that, but he was never the same. But that level of dominance.
That kind of goes to show just how great of a fighter that Silva was. That injury that takes most of these guys out, where they're a complete and total shell of themselves, that he was still putting on a decent performance. Granted, it was absolutely nothing like the freaking Silva of old.
No. I think that was one of the most tragic things in the history of MMA, when he shattered his leg against Weidman. Like, now you can make the argument maybe that he had already lost to Weidman. Maybe his decline was starting already. And I wouldn't tell you you're wrong, but to me, that level of dominance that he displayed, I mean, most title defenses in UFC history, there was just nobody like Silva, that level of dominance. GSP came close, but I rate GSP over Silva, only for two reasons, really. One, GSP never got popped doing roids, period. And so in my list, Silva pays for the roids by dropping down the rankings. He still gets on, like I said, because he was great before the roids. And GSP is slightly above him. Number one, because he didn't do roids, and number two, because GSP quit at the right time. He didn't end up going and losing a bunch of fights, and he retired with a record of like 23-2 or 25-2 rather than 25-9 or 25-7. You know what I mean?
Now I know that this one's going to be way out there, but if GSP and Silva were the same size, who do you think wins that fight?
See, it's not way out there, because they were talking about making that fight for a long time. When Silva was the 185 champ and GSP was the 170 champ, the thing is, they wanted GSP to go up to 85, and he didn't want to do it. He was like, if Silva wants to fight, he can come down to 170 and I'll defend my belt against him. GSP was adamant that he didn't want to go up to 185. And to me, I understand why. Because Silva's weighing in at 185, but on fight night, he's going to be 200 pounds. GSP, he's going to be less than that. He's not going to be, I'm not saying that he's like around at 170, but GSP is going to be 190, and 10 pounds is a lot to give up. You know what I mean? Especially against.
Absolutely. I was going to say that's why the boxing divisions go by 5-pound increments.
Yeah, especially with a guy like Silva, who's already dangerous. Now, if I'm being honest, in that fight, I would. Wow, it's so hard to pick a winner. I see avenues to victory for both of them. I think if the fight stayed standing, that Silva would be the heavy favorite. I think if the fight went to grappling, that GSP was favorite. I think GSP's best path to victory would be to try to wrestle.
How do you think that he put up grappling with just the pure lankiness of Silva?
I think he'd be fine because George is a black belt in jiu-jitsu too. He may not be the high level of a black belt as Silva, but I think that George wasn't just a jiu-jitsu guy. He was a legitimate wrestler. Like George, his wrestling was phenomenal. So, if you have wrestling and jiu-jitsu, it just makes you that type of a dominant grappler, like Khabib, right?
Live from Walmart.
Down P, baby.
Like I said, I'm not gonna pick a winner. Although my heart, even in my heart, as much as I love GSP, I think I would lean slightly towards Silva in that fight, just because of the danger of his striking, and it's just
his ground game's dirty too, though.
Yeah, but I don't see. That's where I think they actually nullify each other. I think GSP's wrestling, he would actually black belt. I think GSP would have the advantage on the ground, and he could kind of grind his way to an ugly decision. But if it stays on the feet for 5 rounds, I have to lean towards Silva. But we were just talking about your favorite steroid cheat, Jon Jones. And,
man, he beat them allegations.
No, he didn't.
Wait a minute. This is coming from a Raiders fan. That's owner that says if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And
I'm pretty sure you boys had his brother too, Chandler.
Yeah, but there's a difference between cheating in football and cheating in fighting. Like, fighting, your guys are putting. Well, I guess there really isn't that much of a difference. Guys are putting their lives on the line in the NFL too. But when they were talking about cheating and about steroids, they were talking about illegal pads and illegal hits, stuff like that.
Do I have to mention 3 Mile Lyle?
Well, that's one guy. Okay, that's one guy. And he wasn't the only guy in the NFL at the time that was on the steroids. Let's be honest.
Nah, you can tell which ones are. What you mean? All that aggressiveness and stuff. So,
yeah. But, I mean, come on. It was Lawrence Taylor on steroids.
That's a bit.
LT was not on steroids. He was
just a beast, though.
He will tell you that.
I would argue he was on crack and steroids, but that's just my opinion.
Wait. They're both, ain't those both uppers or something like that? So he'd be like, wee. No, that's why he's making all them tackles.
Steroids make you more aggressive, and crack just makes you crazy.
We're looking at him on the field, so
yeah. But so we were talking. We were just giving our audience a chance to get to know us kind of by who we choose as our favorite fighters. And so Ken picked the Iceman Chuck Liddell. I picked GS. And then Dom, of course, go ahead and tell us who your favorite.
Oh, you want to know my favorite's Rampage Jackson.
Really?
I'm a big old Rampage Jackson fan. That's my boy right there.
I thought Jon Jones was your favorite.
Oh, no. Jon Jones is up there, but I got into I was watching Pride and all that back in the day. I like Royce Gracie and all that too, but Rampage Jackson, I like his style of boxing, and he was a wrestler, a little bit of wrestling, but that boxing style in the UFC got me to like, oh, okay. Wanderlei Silva too. He's dirty too. I like the old school people.
Every time coming
he got some bowls.
Yeah.
I loved Wanderlei Silva, dude, because the one thing that you were guaranteed with Wanderlei Silva is somebody's getting knocked the fuck out. Like, it might be Wanderlei, it might be the other guy, but this fight ain't going the distance. That's for sure, dude. Like,
exactly. And like for heavyweights, though, what's his name? You guys know Junior Dos Santos? I used to like him. Like he got me into like the heavyweight division and all of that when he won his first UFC fight and everything, and then he beat Cain Velasquez and all of that. And I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's got something. And then he got knocked out and then became a nobody. So
and then Cain just ass fucked him for 2 fights.
Well, that was I think Cain let him win that first fight. To be honest,
I don't think he let him win. I think he just got caught. Cain got caught, but in the second and third fight, Cain did what he needed to do. He's like, why am I going to sit here and box with this dude when I can wrestle him and just take him out and make him.
Why not beat somebody up on the ground? It's way easier, isn't it?
Yeah, and Cain, they called Cain because like he just didn't get tired, except for. But there's a difference. Eventually we found out when he fought Fabricio Verdum in Mexico. There's a difference between altitude Cain and sea level Cain. Sea level Cain has cardio for days. Altitude Cain, wipes out in a round, dude. So, but Jon Jones, we're talking about Jon Jones, and so that brings us into our next question. Is Jon Jones the greatest fighter of all time?
In the UFC, I'm gonna have to go with yes. That's my opinion because I'm just gonna go with what Dana said. If he didn't have that one disqualification, he'd be undefeated. And come on, who has defended the belt? How many times? 16? 16 times? And he's beat heavyweights, 13 or something, right?
I don't think it was that many, but
I think it was like 12 or 13.
Yeah, it's like 12 or 13. But and then he doesn't get beat. He beat a champion, and he's had that ever since. Who did he beat? Who was the first person he beat to get that belt? Was it Rashad Evans, I believe? And Rashad Evans was the bad man, like one of the baddest people on the planet. And then he took Rashad Evans and was dink, dink, dink. He toyed with him the whole round, the whole 5 rounds. Toyed with him. Rampage Jackson, he lit his ass up too. Chael Sonnen, he beat him up. Who else? He ran that whole light heavyweight division. And nobody can tell me that, hey, he's not the best because who is coming and beating him?
Well, I have some for that, but I wanted to let you get your opinion out there and without interrupting. I disagree. I don't think Jon Jones is the best ever. I don't think he's undefeated. I think he lost, and I think a real argument can be made that he lost to Thiago Silva. But I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But he definitely lost to Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes took the first 3 rounds of that fight, and Jon Jones didn't get a 10-8 round to even it out. He won the last 2 rounds. I give that to Jones, but Reyes won the first 3 rounds of that fight. So in a fair world where judging is fair, Reyes should have won the fight.
But in a fair world, you got to knock out the champion or submit the champion to become the champion. You can't just, if I'm a football team and let's say, the Kansas City Chiefs, I tied them, I can't say, oh, I won. That's a tie.
That argument is completely that argument holds no water because if you're let's use your football analogy. If I kick a last-second field goal to beat the Chiefs, I only have to beat them by 1 point. I don't have to beat them by 30 points for people to say I beat them.
Yeah.
So, but yet when we go to boxing, when we go to MMA or boxing, there's this prevailing attitude, which let's be honest, it's an attitude. It's not a rule.
Uh-huh.
If you look in the rule book, the way that a fight is scored is it's scored by individual rounds, and there's a 10-point must system. And whoever wins that round gets 10 points. The opponent gets 9 or less, based on effective striking, grappling, aggression, and damage, right?
Yep.
And octagon control. So this whole argument of you have to knock out or submit the champ, it says that nowhere in the rule book at all. It's not.
That's common knowledge, though. That's common knowledge in boxing. You gotta beat the champ in boxing, right? You can't just go around and light them up a little bit. You have to outstrike them. You have to get these knockdowns and everything.
There are times in boxing where champions have lost their belts in close fights that were, either way. And but I'm not saying that you're wrong about the prevailing attitude. Like the saying for a reason because judges seem to judge this way. However, my point is that nowhere in the rule book does it say this. And, it gives champions this advantage going in of I have to beat the piss out of you for 5 rounds in order to get a 48-47 decision.
But here's another statement.
It's not
what
fair.
Was Dominic Reyes after Jones beat him?
Well,
what was what did his record go? I want to hear this.
He lost like 4 fights in a row, and then he just came back and he just won by knockout a week or 2 ago.
Yeah, but you don't lose 4 fights in a row though. If you beat Jones, you use that same technique you used to beat Jones on the other opponents because he's been holding the UFC, for however long. They need a new face. They're going to need a new face soon after this.
On paper, it's easy to look at Dominic Reyes and say, well, after Jones, he lost 4. But if we actually look at those fights and who he fought Yuri Prochazka, who anybody here, would you want to fight Prohashka? I wouldn't. That dude's
I
an
wouldn't want to fight
absolute
none of those
animal.
guys. You crazy?
That's what I'm
you
saying.
put me
But
in a battle of
especially,
gods compared to
especially
men.
Yuri. Hey, come on, Dom. But especially Yuri, right? You've seen Yuri fight. Yuri
Yeah.
is an absolute animal. And Dom was winning that fight, and then he got caught with that elbow. And I mean, bro, you get caught with an elbow in the face from a guy like Yuri, you're going out.
Oh,
So
definitely,
I don't
straight
really
up.
hold that against him. Now,
You
that's
girls
not
are
even
picky.
counting the argument. That's not even counting the argument of let's go back to the Dominic Reyes Jon Jones fight, right? You're Dominic Reyes. You've trained your ass off for months and months and months. You've won enough fights to earn yourself a title shot. You win the first 3 rounds convincingly against Jon Jones. So you're automatically already thinking like, okay, on paper I should have this thing, but it's Jon Jones, and the judges never pick against Jon Jones. Then you go to the decision, and sure enough, they rob you and they give Jon Jones the win. Wouldn't that do something to you emotionally, psychologically? Like, wouldn't you be like, man, I have to do, like, I beat the champ and I'm not the champ? But so
It
to
mentally
me,
messed him up.
I that's what I'm saying. So then can you really hold this 4-fight losing streak against him when it's like he just got robbed in the biggest fight of his life?
We can
You
do
know
it
what I
in this
mean?
way, though. What about Conor McGregor? That guy loses fight and he gets hyped up all the time. But he keeps
Absolutely.
saying he wants to come back and everything. Like, I really do want to see him fight. I really do. I want to see Conor fight one more time. Like,
I don't.
Well, the only
I
reason
do,
is
but I
because he
don't.
said he
No,
wants to.
you're right. You're right. I do, but I don't.
Yeah, no, I know how
I
you
do
feel, Joe.
because
You know, you
Conor
want to
didn't
see
play.
it, but like you don't want to be played around with. You're like how he keeps playing around.
Well, not just that, but I just think Conor's washed.
Oh yeah, he once he lost that fight against Khabib, he lost. He was washed. Like,
he doesn't train anymore. I
no,
think it was before Khabib. I think once he fought Floyd Mayweather and made $100 million in that fight, that was the end of Conor McGregor, because
yeah,
he didn't have to be hungry anymore. He didn't have to go train anymore. Like, now he can just sit on a yacht, do cocaine, and get blown by hookers. Like, and that's his life. Like, he literally.
I got kids here.
Oh, well, I apologize, but at the same time,
You're good.
I'm not
They
watching.
didn't hear
So,
you.
he posted on his IG, like, that's literally Conor McGregor is like sitting on my yacht doing cocaine. Like,
That's what you do though. You fight until you get that big payday, and then you call it quits. And he did it smart. I ain't gonna lie.
yeah,
Smart
but
businessman.
he hasn't called it quits though, because he
He
comes
done.
back
He
and
done. He probably
once in a
getting like
while.
paid. He probably got investments in the UFC to be getting paid out a little bit.
Yeah,
There's something like that.
but going back to your point about Conor McGregor, like, you're absolutely right that Conor has been favored. How he can come back, like, they set this fight up with Chandler because Chandler's still like the number 7 ranked contender, 6. So, like, if Conor wins, does anybody here honestly think that they wouldn't slide Conor right into that title shot based off of one win over Michael Chandler? Like, they absolutely would, right? That was the plan. It's just like how they sacrificed Cowboy Cerrone to him, right?
Yeah.
So, but Jon Jones is the same thing though. Like, Jon Jones, he loses the title because of steroids, and then he's gone for 3 years allegedly to bulletweight so that he can fight Ngannou, and then Ngannou.
Oh,
Joe, you cut out.
yeah, we got it a frozen Joe again. It's that level of the internet.
It's that Cali internet, man. The Raiders ain't paying their bill.
Man, they're still on the hook even though they're out in Vegas.
Right? Yo, they gotta back pay that revenue, man. What you mean? Oh, come on, Joe. Come on, I want to finish hearing what you were saying.
Oh, it usually takes about a minute or so for it to come back for him.
Okay. Oh man, these little girls. One sec.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, but to the point, do we have the stats for that fight by any chance? Jones and Reyes?
Not offhand, but give me a half a second.
I looked them up earlier. I just couldn't pull. I knew I was going to be at the store, so I just couldn't pull them and match it up.
Okay. Who?
Because I want to see that.
Jon Jones threw a lot less total strikes at 170 compared to 263, but his connect percentage was way better at 62.9 versus 45.2.
And that's the point I was making. You got to beat the champ to beat the champ. He knows how to fight. Like all those other people coming in try to knock him out and everything. You throw less punches, you get less tired. You throw more punches, you're gonna be more tired. And I guarantee Dominic Reyes threw a lot more powerful punches compared to Jones.
Yeah, the significant strikes. It was damn near a difference of 100 strikes. It was 166 to 259.
What are we talking about here?
Jon Jones and Reyes's stats for the fight.
Okay, so who had the advantage in significant strikes?
In volume, Reyes, but in connect percentage, it was Jon Jones by quite a bit.
But volume, meaning total strikes landed, it was Reyes by how many?
In total strikes, it was 170 for Jon Jones and 263 for Reyes.
Okay, so
he landed 119.
He landed 119, and how many did Jones land?
62%. 62% of his strike.
So 119 to 107, and that's over the course of the total fight, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So Jones landed more strikes in rounds 4 and 5, right?
It does not give.
I wish I could pull those stats up.
Yeah, it doesn't give the full breakdown. Right. I'm looking at of round by round. It just gives the total for everything.
Yeah. There should be a round by round breakdown, but
all right.
We can always go on YouTube and just look at the fight. They'll show the significant strikes during the course of the fight.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly certain that Reyes outstruck Jones in the first 3 rounds. He landed more significant strikes in the first 3 rounds, and by a lot. It wasn't.
Well, isn't that all together? The 260 something strikes, isn't that all together in all 5 rounds, and then the 170 all together in all 5 rounds? Because that's not specifically just one round.
No, dude. If somebody landed 119 strikes in 1 round,
like, what are you, a boxer?
Yeah, son of a bitch is sitting there.
Bro, think, think.
Bro, even the 112-pound fighters don't land 100 punches in a round. That's crazy,
right, man?
That would mean you'd have to be throwing about 4 punches. Well, about a punch a second for the whole 3 minutes, dude. Like, that's crazy.
You know how much stamina you would have to have? That's too much stamina. That's like think.
Yeah.
Right.
So, no, I guess Facebook doesn't want to hear my Jon Jones argument, but he's kicking me off.
What is it? Get marked or something?
No, just the internet keeps like cutting out, or I don't know. Like I just keep getting booted.
Yeah.
Like, every time, because you were talking about Conor McGregor and the favoritism that's shown to him, and
yep.
I agree with you on that. But I think Jon Jones gets that same favoritism. Jon Jones gets to piss dirty, and they even say like, because Jon Jones took steroids in the past, like he can have what's called pulsing, which means like even if he's not currently using steroids, because he used steroids in the past, they could still show up in his piss, and you'll find picograms. Like, there's no science for that whatsoever. It's never been shown to be true. But like Jon Jones, like he could go piss dirty tomorrow, like he's getting ready for the fight.
He piss dirty for cocaine. What you mean?
No,
just like you do with Don Cormier.
He pissed dirty. He pissed dirty for steroids too against Daniel Cormier. Not to mention the time that he hid under the octagon at Jackson Wink for 8 hours to hide from the USADA testers.
I remember that.
Yeah. Then there's also, let's keep it real. See, that's why to me my argument is Jon Jones is not the greatest of all time, is because you can't trace when Jon Jones started using steroids. We don't know.
Oh yeah, you never mind. I gotta go, boys.
Yeah.
All right, Dom.
Bye. See you guys.
See, that's
Yeah.
the problem for me is that we don't know when Jon Jones started using steroids.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, that Jackson Wink thing was very early in his career. So obviously he was already hiding from drug testers then. So like, to me, the reason how, you know, like, do you get my argument with like Silva? It's like there's a very clear line when Silva started
Yeah,
using
because
steroids.
Silva was upfront about it and came right out and said, "Hey, you know, I use this and for X, Y, and Z reason." Where Jon Jones kept it very close to the chest, we'll phrase it.
And yeah, but that's not really my argument. My argument isn't that Anderson was upfront about it, even though he was. My argument is that there's a very clear line. Like, we know when he started because he popped for steroids when he was recovering, you know, his leg injury. But he had never popped before that. He'd never hidden from drug testers. Like, you know, so I tend to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was a clean fighter up until that point. And when his leg got shattered, somebody said, "Hey, you know, if you take these steroids, they'll, you know, instead of being away for 2 years, you can be back in a year, you know, like a year and a half, you
Mm-hmm.
know." And so I think that, you know, he was like, well, yeah, why am I going to be out for 2 years when I could come back sooner? Whereas with Jon Jones, early in his career, he's hiding under the octagon from USADA testers, right? Like, there's just, we don't know when Jon Jones started. So to me, his whole career is suspect, you know? Um, because I can't tell you, like, you know, unless you want to have the argument that, like, well, Jon Jones was clean up until the point when he fought Daniel Cormier and tested positive. Okay, I disagree, because you don't hide under an octagon for 8 hours from USADA if you're clean.
Well,
And that was years
we
before that.
all know Jon Jones also likes his cocaine too, so that could have been why he was hiding.
It's possible. It's possible. So even if, you know, let's say, okay, so Daniel Cormier, we'll go to the second Daniel Cormier fight when he head kicked him, right? We'll say that's the line where Jon Jones started using steroids. How many defenses did he have after that? And, like, you know, his greatest opponent was Daniel Cormier, and he only beat Daniel Cormier because of steroids. Like, it's, I don't know. To me, there's just too many asterisks. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not shitting on Jon Jones. See, Jon Jones, to me, I'm mad that I don't get to like Jon Jones, because I'm a purist of the sport, and Jon Jones is one of the greatest fighters that ever lived. Like, he was given such tremendous natural advantages with his length and his, you know, and he took advantage of it to the fullest. But the thing is, Jon Jones didn't need steroids to be Jon Jones, but he used them anyway, and that's the thing that where it's like,
Yeah, he's popped positive a couple of times.
yeah, Jon Jones has popped positive several times, number one. And number two, so the reason the UFC has been able to still keep him fighting is because Jon Jones got some medical doctor to basically talk about this theory called pulsing, right? Which means that if ever in your life you actually took steroids, even if you don't do steroids for years after that, it can pop up in any random drug test as picogram at the picogram level. It can just pulse. It's called a pulse, right? So, like, these steroids pulse through your body for the rest of your life. So, but it's not every drug test. It's just, you could do 10 clean drug tests and all of a sudden you'll pulse and you'll test positive for picograms of steroids that you took 5 years ago. It's complete horseshit. It basically, the UFC gave Jon Jones a license to test dirty for trace amounts of steroids, just in case he didn't finish, you know, he didn't manage his cycle correctly.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. And people want to, like, act like that's not the case. Look at Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is absolutely 100% on juice. Like, he got up over 200 pounds. Did you see him in Roadhouse?
Oh yeah.
There's a reason that he refused to enter USADA's testing pool, right? Then all of a sudden the UFC has a beef with USADA over something, right? And, like, all of a sudden the UFC gets rid of USADA as their testers, and now Conor McGregor is making a comeback.
Mhm, mhm.
The bottom line is the UFC wants Conor to fight Jews. How is what possible, Nico? How is it
I'm
possible
assuming
that
the
John,
trace amounts.
right? That's I just want to make sure and clarify that that's what he's saying. Like, how is it possible that he can pulse? It's not, in my opinion. But I'm not a doctor. He got some cockamamie doctor to say that pulsing is a legit thing, and that 5 years down the line, even if you haven't done any steroids, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Conor has not fought on steroids, and you're right. Conor has not had an official UFC fight where he was on steroids, because he started the steroids after the Cowboy fight, after the Khabib fight, after the Dustin Poirier fights, right? Really, it's when he broke his leg. I think he did it the same reason that Anderson Silva did, is he wanted to recover faster, and then all of a sudden he was getting jacked, and he's like, oh man, this is sweet, like he's been a little guy his whole life, and now he's walking around 210 pounds, solid muscle, just swole, jacked, like I
All
get
right.
it.
But unfortunately, we have hit that time.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks for
Yeah, thank you, Nico, for your comments. Keep coming back. Keep dropping comments.
Yeah, we will be here the same time next Wednesday at 2 Central. Can't wait to see everybody then. Have yourselves a good night.